Hello, welcome. My name is Modja, and welcome to Polyglot Principles. This is where I teach you the principles of language learning in order to enable you to learn a language like a genius. And today's video is about how to smash your fear of speaking a foreign language. Right? So, have you had this experience before? You know you need to speak in order to understand the language, but you're kind of afraid. You're afraid of speaking. And you're so, perhaps maybe you're even terrified, right? And you can't even open your mouth to say anything, right? So how do you smash this fear? Because I'm sure if you're watching this video, you know that this fear is a key component that is holding you back. So that's our focus in this video. And I'm going to be sharing useful tips right to the end. And some of my best tips are stored for last. Okay, so, before we start, I do have a question for you. The question is, why do you think you're afraid of speaking in your target language, right? What is this fear? What causes the fear of speaking in a foreign language, right? I'm very interested in knowing what you think, right? So if you could write that down in the comment section below, that would be super helpful for me to understand what you're struggling with. And also you might be able to receive some help from other members of the Polyglot Principles community. All right, so let me give you some of the reasons why I think, right, this is again from personal experience, why I think that people are afraid of speaking in a foreign language, right? The first reason is just perfectionism, right? So people want to be perfect before they can open their mouth to speak. And this is very foolish, right? Very dumb to do that, right? Because you get perfect by making mistakes. Actually, first of all, perfection does not exist, yes? It's an ideal we strive towards, but perfection does not exist. The reality is that even in your native language, you make mistakes. There is still more to learn, right? So we pursue perfection, but we cannot become perfect, right? And the way we become perfect is by making mistakes, identifying those mistakes, and correcting them. Now, if you don't make any mistakes, which means if you keep your mouth shut, you will never be able to speak close to perfectly or speak fluently, right? So this is a really major issue, right? Trying to be perfect, right? So if your goal is to speak perfectly, to speak fluently, then first of all, start by opening your mouth. Speak, make mistakes, improve upon those mistakes. You'll speak better and better and better, and eventually you'll get to the point where you're speaking fluently and very few recognizable mistakes, except if it's like your language is scrutinized by like some grammar expert, all right? So the other big reason, right, perhaps you maybe have experienced this, why you don't want to open your mouth to speak the language is that you're afraid, one of the sources of the fear is that you don't want to look stupid. Right, you feel like if you start speaking, you look stupid. People will maybe laugh at you and think you're foolish. Now, there's a difference between what you imagine and the reality. You think that you're gonna look stupid, right? And people are gonna think, in particular, you're afraid that people are gonna think you're stupid. But what is the reality? Do people actually think you're stupid? And the reality is no, right? Because I have learned several foreign languages, and I've spoken with many people. Never when I've spoken did they ever tell me you're stupid, or did they act in a way that suggests that they think I'm stupid. That was all in my head. Usually, just take the example of yourself. Have you ever interacted with someone who's trying to learn a language you already know? Do they ever think of you as being stupid? Or do you ever think of them as, oh, this guy is stupid because he's trying to speak my language? No. Usually you're proud, you're very excited that someone is trying to learn your language, and you're doing your best to try and help them. This is how people also behave, right? Likely here you're just being too critical of yourself, and it's not necessary. And the second thing is that, let's say people do think you're stupid, very unlikely, but let's say someone thinks you're stupid and just laughs at you. No problem, right? One thing you can do is just laugh with them, right? You say something stupid, right? And they laugh. You laugh with them. Ha ha. Then you ask them, hey, what's the correct thing to say? You could do that. Another thing is, remember that To become smart, you must first be stupid. Intelligence begins in stupidity. That's important, right? So remind yourself when you're afraid that you're going to look stupid, that you're not going to be stupid for long. You're not going to look foolish for long. You're going to make these mistakes, you're going to get better, and you're going to look less stupid, right? If you want to use that kind of terminology, right? So that's one really, that's a huge fear. And that's one major cause, right? Don't want to look stupid. That's one major cause of being afraid to speak the language. The other cause that's huge is maybe I don't have enough vocabulary. So this is not really psychological. You're like, look, if I need to speak a language, I need to know the words. I don't have enough words to speak. Now, this may be true, right? But the question I'm going to ask you is this. How much vocabulary do you need to learn in order to be able to speak? That number is way less than you think it is, right? And the reality is that even from the very first day, you can start speaking. Maybe your first conversation can be with Google Translate or some sort of dictionary, right? You say what you want to say, right? And if you don't have the word, you can always look it up. You can always look up the word, right? There's nothing stopping you from doing that, right? So, I mean, one of my policies is from the very beginning when I'm learning a language, right? Once I have the pronunciation, I start speaking, okay? And whenever I don't know a word, I just look it up in the dictionary. That's not an excuse. You can look up the word. No, and the native speaker is not going to think that, or the person you're learning with is not going to think, oh, you're dumb because you look in the dictionary. Usually they're very patient and understanding, right? When you look up a word or are struggling, hesitating, no worries. And I mean, another thing is, look, another thing when it comes to speaking, right? So here's another tool that I use that's very useful. So right now I'm learning German, right? At the very beginning, when I started learning German, I had a bit of an issue, right? One of my conversation partners had told me that I don't know many of the basic words. I didn't know the word and, yeah, und, aber, oder, right, but, or, all these words. I didn't know some of the basic words. So I was having the problem of very little vocabulary, right? So what did I do to solve this problem? Very simple. I created a script. What's a script, right? Conversations are based in patterns. When you meet someone for the first time, the conversation goes pretty much the same way, right? You're going to tell them what your name is, they're going to tell you what their name is, you're going to ask them maybe where they live, what kind of work they do, how are they feeling today, you might want to talk about the weather. There are certain things that always happen in a conversation. So one thing you can do is create a script. This is what I did. I sat down and thought of how are my conversations likely to go, right? And then in advance, I figured out how to say those things. My name is so-and-so. What is your name? I come from Congo. Where do you come from? What do you do? What is your work? What is your favorite food? What are your hobbies? You can figure out in advance how to do that. And nowadays it's easy, right? You could just go to Google, for example, or a dictionary and translate the most commonly used phrases enough for you to start speaking. There is no excuse, right? This might take you maybe 1 hour to create a script of some of the basic things that you'd want to talk about in a conversation. And once you have that script, you can start talking, right? So in reality, you can start talking from the very beginning, right? Or you can start talking very quickly. No, you don't have to wait a week, a month, or a couple of years to speak. No, no, no. This is again the trap of trying to be a perfectionist, right? Perfection comes from making mistakes. And what you're going to notice is that the more you speak, the better you will be at speaking, right? The more resourceful your mind will be, yes? And also the other thing to remember is that you will be surprised, right? You will be surprised how much you can do with very little vocabulary. This is the principle of resourcefulness. The most greatest resource is the ability to use resources, not resources themselves. See? A resourceful person can perform miracles with very little information, right? I mean, imagine a guy that here's an example I'm going to use, right? Imagine a guy that, let's say, is a very resourceful fighter. A very resourceful fighter can defeat you without any weapons, without any gun, without any knife, right? This guy, man, like, this is the sort of guy that even if you tied him down and he was only left with one finger, he could kill you with one finger. Because this guy is very good at using little things, right? He's very good at doing more with less. And this is the advantage of speaking as early as possible. Yes? It's also the advantage of speaking even if you don't have enough vocabulary, because you're developing resourcefulness, the capacity to do more with less, the capacity to perform wonders with even one word that you know, right? What you'll notice here is that you start to experience what is called overlearning. Because you know very few words, you're gonna overuse those words, which means you're gonna deeply learn those words, right? So there is no excuse for you not to start speaking, man. Once you've worked on pronunciation, get going. And I mean, even if you don't want to do pronunciation, just start talking and correct your pronunciation as you go along, right? So this whole thing of I don't have enough vocabulary, that's a myth. Don't let it hold you back, right? And then the final reason why you might be afraid to speak the language is, hey, look, I don't have enough grammar, right? I don't have enough grammar. Once I learn enough grammar, I will speak, right? Someday, when I learn enough grammar, I will speak. Just listen to how foolish that sounds, right? Don't get lost in that nonsense. You do not need to know any grammar to speak. You just start speaking. And the grammar, the person you're speaking to will teach you some of the grammatical structures. Even if you just started a conversation with someone and you pointed to yourself and said, Modja, right? John, right? After a while, the person will understand and they'll be like, oh yeah, I am John. They'll teach you the grammatical structure. So learning grammar, there's a lot of debate. Is it useful? Is it not? Grammar can be useful if done correctly, but even without grammar, you can start communicating. Use your facial features if you must, right? And the key here when it comes to speaking is, okay, so here's another principle I apply when I speak is, this is like a principle, it's like a design principle, right? There's one time, I asked an engineering student, a friend of mine, I asked him, what's the most important principle when you create an engineering prototype? Like, let's say, I don't know, a new type of car or a new type of machine. He said the most important thing is to first get the thing to work. The machine has to work, even if it's working badly. First, let's get a working machine. Once we have a working machine, we can figure out how to make it more efficient, how to make it look better, how to make it more elegant. We are not going to spend time, for example, figuring out how to paint, how to make the machine look beautiful if we don't know that the machine works. Okay, so how does this analogy connect with speaking a language? Don't try to speak the language with perfect grammar at the very beginning, or with perfect vocabulary at the very beginning. At the very beginning, you want to focus on communication. First, get the idea across, right? Just say something that works. That's all. That's your most important thing. Even if you use broken language, poor grammar, limited vocabulary, even if you had to use some facial expressions, if you've communicated an idea, that's the beginning. Start with communication. And then later you can focus on elegance, correct usage of words, correct grammar, correct, start just communicate. Get the idea across. That is the basis of language. Its first most important thing is to communicate, right? And when you think about it that way, you realize that you can start speaking right now, right? You don't have to wait till you're perfect. You can start speaking right now, right? And a good example I could give you is, for example, when I was learning German, right? I am learning German. At the very beginning, I didn't know what the word for pain was. Schmerzen, yeah? Headache. I wanted to say headache, but I didn't know how to say Kopfschmerzen. Schmerzen in Deutsch means pain, and Kopf means head. I didn't know how to say head, Kopf. I didn't know the word Schmerzen, and my rule was no English, so we had to use German. So guess what I do? I hold my head and then I yell, ah! Hold my head and yell, ah! And then, funny thing, the guy I was speaking to figured out what I was trying to say. I did not use perfect grammar. In fact, I did not use any grammar at all. I didn't even use any words. The guy figured out what I was trying to say, and he gave me the words Kopf, Schmerzen, right? Then I was able to remember and retain that word because I struggled to use it, right? So first communicate and then focus on grammar and elegance later on, all right? So look, I have really beaten a dead horse here, right? I might have gone in too much detail as I typically do. Look, if you found this video very valuable, likely you like other videos that I make. Now, every Monday at 8 a.m. Central African Time, I release a new video that's designed to teach you the principles of language learning, hence enabling you to learn a language like a genius, right? If you want to be notified when these videos come out, please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, right? Like the video, give it a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and don't forget to hit the bell notification. Ding, 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 ding. That will notify you whenever I come up with a new video. And sometimes I'll surprise you. I might come up with a video before Monday, 8 a.m. Central African Time. Otherwise, thank you very much for investing your time in watching this video. I hope it was valuable to you, and hope to see you on the next one, yeah? Bye.